I firmly believe that you need to try hard in life, be very intentional with the time you have on this planet. The discipline and resilience and self-growth that you're gonna experience from getting there is gonna translate from one to another. So I honestly believe that losing body fat, staying lean year-round, maintaining 10 to 15% body fat, or even just getting there is honestly easier than you might think once you know these 5 things. Now, if you follow my fitness journey, you know that I've been maintaining 10 to 12% body fat for at least the 5 years I've been uploading content. But if you're gonna take my word for it, I've pretty much been able to maintain this 10 to 12% body fat range for closer to 10 years at this point. Now, I'm now 26 years old. The life I'm living now is much different than when I first started. And some people are gonna 100% blame it on purely genetics. But honestly, I don't think that gives myself enough credit, because I do firmly believe that the reason I'm able to maintain this lean body composition for so long, despite all the lifestyle changes, going through high school, college, working corporate, and finally being a full-time content creator now, traveling all over the place all the time, really comes down to these 5 key principles. So if you're currently on your journey to lose body fat and build an aesthetic physique, well, I think these 5 things are gonna happen. Now, the first one is to embrace movement. Now, I think a big thing I do really well is I really try to move a lot throughout the day. Like, if you were to shadow me on a day-to-day basis, I'm pretty much like never home. You might be thinking, well, obviously, Tyler, you're a fitness content creator, you're gonna be exercising and moving and stuff like this, but I'm not really even talking about exercising. Instead, I literally just walk around a lot. I choose to take the stairs instead of the escalator. And obviously, like, okay, taking these stairs one time over the elevator isn't gonna make a big difference in terms of total calorie burn, but if you do that on a daily basis, and then you build the habit of doing that for the rest of your life, well, it kind of adds up. But on top of that, I just like to walk a lot. Like, even before I started making content back in college, I would pretty much walk wherever I go. I walk to the gym, walk to class, walk to get food, walk to get groceries. Walking was my primary form of commuting, and because I was an RA and I was living in a dorm, I pretty much always try to stay out. Now, I get it, if you're living in the suburbs or if you're in LA, it's a little bit hard to walk around and stuff. Maybe you gotta be a little bit more intentional about getting your cardio in. But if you live in a very walkable city like where I am right now in Central Park in New York City, or pretty much any city in Asia, then you really don't have an excuse not to be hitting at least like 10,000 steps a day, even when it gets cold out. Now, admittedly, I don't like walking for the purpose of walking. In other words, I hate doing like dedicated cardio sessions, but instead, I like to walk with a goal in mind. For example, walking to go to a coffee shop to work, or biking to the gym. That's just a personal preference of mine, and I guarantee if you have the ability to do so, not only will it help you lose body fat, but I think it will overall improve your level of happiness and kind of soothe your soul. I don't know, there's something about going outside, getting fresh air, walking somewhere, and just like thinking about things, you know? In fact, I literally just took a red-eye flight from LA straight to New York City. I arrived at 5 a.m. It is now 8 a.m. I already finished making my TikToks and content and stuff. I can't check into my hotel yet. And not gonna lie, I thought I was gonna feel like ass, but I feel pretty dang good right now. I think part of it has to do with the fact that I walked like 3 miles already at this point. So try to move more if you can. In the beginning, it might be hard, but I promise you, like everything, as you develop the habit of doing so, it becomes easier and easier. And then eventually you get to the point where if you don't do it, you feel a little bit weird. Now, the second thing you need to know is that lifting weights is not pointless for losing body fat. Now, a common misconception is that you can't build muscle while losing body fat or being in a caloric deficit, cutting, whatever. Now, that has pretty much been debunked. In fact, there are many people, especially newer lifters, that are able to biorecomp, that is build muscle and lose body fat at the same time, but I'm not even gonna be talking about that. If you want more information on how to biorecomp, which if you're skinny fat or if you're in a position where you have body fat to lose and you are a newer lifter, then you probably should be doing that. Well, you can find that video link in the card right now. However, what I'm gonna focus on instead is the worst case scenario. Let's imagine that you're losing body fat and you build no muscle at all. Well, you might be thinking, oh, lifting weights is pointless then. No, that is not true, because you lifting weights allows yourself to actually maintain muscle mass, which is very, very underappreciated, because if you're in a caloric deficit for too long, which inevitably happens when you're trying to lose body fat, you risk also losing muscle mass, which is something you do not want. And to explain that, even though it's quite self-explanatory, is when you lose muscle mass, the total amount of calories you burn on a daily basis actually decreases. This is one of the reasons why you hear those stories of people crash dieting. That is, they lose all the body fat and then they gain the weight right back, because ultimately it becomes hard for them to maintain a lean body composition, because not only do they have to maintain that super low amount of calories, but they're naturally burning less calories as well, which is obviously not good. And then of course, if you want to build an aesthetic physique, you ideally want a good amount of muscle mass. At least most of y'all will. I guarantee that will be the case. And the reason this is important is pretty much this. When you're in a caloric deficit, your body needs to pull that energy deficit from somewhere. Now, ideally, you want it to come from body fat, but in some cases, it can also come from muscle muscle mass. So what you do to mitigate the chance of your body using muscle mass in order to fill that energy expenditure is you continue to lift weights and try to progressive overload. This way you provide the stimulus for your body to maintain the muscle mass in that worst case scenario. Because once again, if you're a newer lifter and you do things right, you're probably gonna be able to body recomp and actually build muscle. Worst case scenario, you just maintain the muscle mass. Well, then in that case, your body has no choice but to pull the energy expenditure from your fat stores, which is of course exactly what you want. Now, the third thing you need to know is you have to learn to like healthy foods. Or another way to say this is you need to be experimental enough to find healthy foods that you actually personally enjoy. Because I guarantee, even if you're a picky eater, there's something out there that is relatively high in protein and less calorically dense that you actually enjoy. Now, if you do this on top of everything else I've said, like, staying active, lifting weights, you can potentially lose body fat without even having to track. Now, me personally, in every single meal I eat, I try to make sure there is a lean source of protein and some sort of vegetable in it. And then the third factor is I try to limit the amount of carbs I eat. So let's say I'm eating chicken teriyaki and they give me rice, I generally don't finish all my rice. And then the fourth thing is I try to limit the amount of oils or fats I consume, which basically means I try to avoid deep fried foods and other super greasy stuff. Now, that one is pretty simple. Now, if the only thing you thought of when you heard that is dry chicken and broccoli, well, that is the problem right there, because there's so much good food out there that is relatively clean. I spent 2 weeks in Asia pretty much eating out every single meal, documented everything on my Snapchat, which you can follow in the link in the description, and you'll see everything I ate is relatively clean. Whether it was steamed Cantonese style soy sauce fish, or even a Cuban dish like ropa vieja, in pretty much any cuisine out there, there's something relatively clean. So the more experimental you are with different cuisines and just looking for a lean source of protein as well as veggies, the less you're gonna be stressing out about your diet, because the stuff you wanna eat just pretty much ends up being healthy as well. Also, real quick, the AYBL Black Friday sale is still alive. As you see, I'm rocking the Gothic oversized hoodie. But yeah, I would say AYBL is probably one of the most underrated gym clothing brands. They have a wider range of different types of gym clothes. There's quarter zips, the compression style t-shirts, oversized t-shirts, more minimalistic stuff, more graphic stuff, as well as their core 5-inch shorts, which if you are under 5'8", I have to say it's probably gonna be one of the best shorts you buy. The proportions are just perfect. So you've been on the fence or you've been waiting for a sale, and now is a great time. It is up to 60% off site-wide, men's and women's, plus an additional 10% off if you use code PATH. Check that out, link in the description. The support is much appreciated. Now, the fourth thing you need to know are cheat codes. Now, I call them cheat codes because compared to everything else, it kind of just seems unfair that these things exist. So I would recommend these when your back is against a wall and you feel like you really need that extra help, right? And that is 1, caffeine, and 2, artificial sweeteners. Now, in many cases, you get both at once, but I'm gonna start with caffeine. So, as you know, caffeine is probably the most widely consumed drug on the planet, and I'm almost hesitant to tell you this because I don't want you to build a caffeine dependency, but caffeine is great for curbing your appetite and also making you want to just move around more. In fact, it has been shown that caffeine can increase your total daily energy expenditure by roughly 100 calories. But in my opinion, the more powerful thing about caffeine is it greatly reduces your appetite. Me personally, not gonna lie, over 2025, I've really been experimenting a lot with caffeine, and I have to say it has completely eliminated my desire to snack. Nowadays, I pretty much never snack anymore. On top of that, I pretty much fast in the morning, and not gonna lie, I attribute some of the reasoning of why I'm able to be consistent with that to, honestly, caffeine. But again, I don't condone consuming caffeine regularly. I would say only take it when you need it. Which brings me to the second thing, and that is artificial sweeteners. Now, I naturally have a pretty big sweet tooth. I pretty much love anything that's sweet, boba, cake, chocolate, and pretty much every time I want something sweet, a good alternative I find for me is literally just drinking Diet Coke instead. Or if it's in the morning and I want some caffeine for my workout, not gonna lie, man, maybe sometimes I'll take a white Monster, when it's Friday or something. I'm feeling extra crazy. But all jokes aside, I think artificial sweeteners are great as a substitute for whenever you want something sugary. Or honestly, an even better substitute would be fruit. So yeah, let me revise the cheat code slightly. It's caffeine, artificial sweeteners, and fruit. Now you're thinking, okay, Tyler, these tips are great, but I kind of just want to take all the guesswork out of getting to my fitness goals. Well, in that case, I highly recommend you apply to my exclusive one-on-one fitness coaching program, which you can find link in the description right now. Here's some body transformations on screen. You get a workout program just for you, nutrition advice fit for your goals, weekly check-ins to track your progress, as well as the ability to ask pretty much any questions you might have. So if that sounds interesting to you, apply right now. Hope to see you there. And now the last thing you need to know, and I don't think you're gonna expect this answer, and I honestly mean it from a really good place, and that is focus on making enough money. Now, I mentioned this a little bit before, but I grew up pretty poor. You know, I saw my parents struggle a lot growing up, and ultimately it drove me to try hard in life, right? It drove me to do well in school. It drove me to get into a good college, eventually get into consulting, work in consulting for almost 2 years, and of course now do this full time, which is honestly such a blessing. I love you guys. I don't say how grateful I actually am enough, but it goes without saying that the more resources, that is money you have, the easier it will be for you to afford things that will make it easier for you to actually lose body fat, right? So for example, if you're earning enough money, maybe you have the option to eat out regularly, or pay for a meal kit service, or pay for fitness coaching, whatever it might be, right? Not gonna lie, for pretty much all of 2025, I've been eating out more than I do cooking at home, just because it saves me a lot of time. But also there's a qualitative benefit for that, right? Chances are you're not gonna be as stressed, meaning your cortisol levels are gonna be lower overall, which does in fact translate to your ability to actually lose body fat long term. Now, obviously, I'm not saying everyone needs to be some sort of like mega billionaire or anything, but I firmly believe that you need to try hard in life, be very intentional with the time you have on this planet, focus on putting you and your loved ones in a good place, and man, oh man, whether the fitness part comes first or the career part comes first, the discipline and resilience and self-growth that you're gonna experience from getting there is gonna translate from one to another. Now, for me, it so happened that I got into fitness first before I was able to, really start seeing some sort of success in my career and business. But for many of you guys, maybe the other way around makes more sense. Obviously, everyone has their own path, but I wish and hope that eventually for all of you guys, you get to a place where you're not only happy health-wise, but also financially. And ultimately, that is gonna require hard work. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Consider copying something on MyProtein if you want an easy way to get 20 grams of protein. I'm not going to do a hard plug in this video, but you can use code TPATH if you want roughly 40 to 50% off. The discounts are pretty heavy right now because of Black Friday. But with that said, wish you the best of luck. Consider leaving a like on this video. It would be much appreciated. Hit subscribe to Level Your Physique. Good luck on your fitness goals. Good luck on losing body fat. Good luck on life. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.